I nominated Brian Hedden to be my helper for this evening. Okay. Okay, Jack. So we are ready to begin with the first we're live streamed. I'll turn it over
All
to you.
right. Thank you, Josephine. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to the June 2025 Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. Before we get started, I'm going to announce that we have another Traffic and Transportation meeting on June 25th at 6:30. It's a meeting co-hosted with CB10. The DOT is doing a street site improvement project around 65th Street, which kind of borders CB7 and CB10, right near Bay Ridge Towers. And so they're proposing a bunch of like visibility improvements, curbside markings, etc. So they will do a presentation on June 25th at 6:30, and we'll send the details about that later this month or later this week. On today's agenda, we have two items. One is an open dining application from Sophia, and second is to gather community feedback and response to DOT on the city bike expansion. So let's cover Sophia first.
Okay. So the applicant is present for Sophia Restaurant. There is an application for a sidewalk cafe with 9 tables and 19 seats on both on 3rd Avenue. Sophia's held a sidewalk cafe license prior to the New York City DOT program that was approved in 2004. There were 23 311 noise complaints for this location since 23, but it's important to note that the complaints occurred on 3 specific dates, 7/19, 4/28, and 8/11/23. The layout of the sidewalk cafe is featured here. It was existing and approved by the Department of Consumer Affairs prior to the change to the Department of Transportation. So the layout has remained the same. The hours of operation for Sophia are Sunday through Saturday. Sunday through Thursday from noon to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday from noon to midnight. So Community Board 10 standard outdoor dining stipulation agreement was sent to the applicant, Mr. Bavaro, who's here, and he's agreed to the stipulation agreement. And I'm going to stop my share now and see if we could get back on camera. Mr. Bavaro was here. I'm going to turn this over to you. Do you have any comments or anything to add? No? Okay. Are there any questions from the
only complaints were in 23 or?
Yes, and there were 3, I believe, on 3 dates.
What were the content of the 311 calls?
So they were noise complaints. And I don't know if it was a special event. It was so far back that I couldn't tell. But there seemed to be consecutive calls on those specific dates that were closed out as duplicates. So I don't know what the issue was on those specific dates, but it was some time ago and we haven't had anything since.
Okay, and that was like.
And we've had no calls to the district office. Yeah.
Anybody coming to say or any police activity.
Okay, I don't see any hand raised in the committee. Oh, I see one. Stephanie, please.
Yeah, I know in the past Sophia's has had valet. Does the restaurant have valet now? And if so, how is it? How does that work? Because we have that stipulation.
We have valet on Friday night and Saturday night only.
And are spaces in front of the restaurant blocked off with cones?
No.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Do you use a private parking lot? Is that how it works?
I don't know what they use. It's the same valet for the entire 3rd Avenue. All the restaurants have the same valet now.
So they're using public.
Is that right?
They're using public space.
Probably.
for-
I assume, yeah.
There's a monopoly on valet service on Third Avenue. Wait, hold on. Is that right? Wait, hold on.
I have no idea.
Who do you? How do you? Okay, how do you have no idea?
You asked me if there was a monopoly?
He asked, do you know where the cars are parked? You said you had no idea,
No. Where
Okay.
oh, no. I guess around,
but is it public parking, I guess is what he's asking. Is it the street parking? I should
yes,
say
yes,
street parking.
yes.
It's street
I
parking.
misunderstood, yes.
Can we just clarify what that means, that it's the same valet used by every other restaurant on Third Avenue? Because,
The name is Premier Valet,
ah,
valet for all the restaurants and whoever else needs valet on Third Avenue. As far as I know, it's one company.
Right. Is it every day or just limited days?
Mine is only 2 days. I don't know what everybody else, if they have
Okay.
it just on the weekend or if they have it every day.
so
But
none of,
right up and down Third Avenue, you'll see the same sign. Everyone has the same sign.
and none of the
Same
rest.
sign on public parking. Sorry, Stephanie, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Just so then presumably none of the restaurants owners or managers are aware of how the valets are parking those cars, or if there are any violations on the street, as we've seen.
We came here for one reason, and we're gonna sit here through all of your meeting,
No, we had one thing on the
This
agenda,
is-
we have to get finished.
because we're here for one reason,
I
and you
know,
all
for
know
the
that.
second part, yes, for the second part.
Everybody's here for one reason.
That is not true.
And
That
it's-
is objectively not true. Not everybody is here.
Can we just have, I know we have a lot of people here. We have one agenda item, which is a sidewalk cafe. Once it's completed, we'll move to the next agenda item. I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
Okay, I think it's worth us getting clarification potentially from like Third Avenue merchants, just to understand like what this theme is. But I will note that it is part of our stipulations that valet parking cannot use a public space per city law. So I would really recommend you taking a look at the services that are being provided by Premier Valet, but we'll also be taking up with third Avenue merchants, sorry. Okay. Any other comments, questions from the committee? Okay, so this is a sidewalk cafe application. I think we can call it to vote. All in favor, please raise your hand.
No, just members, just members. Okay, so there are 4 committee members present in the room and they've all voted in favor.
Okay, any opposed?
2 opposed. Oh, I'm
Any
sorry.
abs-
I'm sorry, I
3
just want to be correct. Steve, are you opposed? Or in- I'm sorry,
Yes, I'm opposed.
3 opposed.
Okay, any abstentions or recusals? Okay, I believe that motion passes 5-3.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. You could go, Mr. Bavaro.
Thank you.
Or if you want to stay, then you're welcome to stay.
You're welcome to stay, indeed.
I apologize for the camera not working. I'm not really sure. But my internet connection is now unstable. Can you hear me, Jack?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay, so I could proceed with the, we have a few slides on the city bike intro. I'll share that. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the city bike expansion in Bay Ridge. New York City Department of Transportation presented its city bike expansion draft plan seeking public feedback. On May 15, 2025, the New York City Department of Transportation presented 50 proposed stations to the community board. I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback from someone. Let me just,
Steve, would you mind muting us if I think you are providing feedback?
okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. On May 15th, the New York City Department of Transportation presented 50 proposed stations to Community Board 10's Traffic and Transportation Committee. The department is requesting that residents send feedback to their email address at bikeshare@dot.nyc.gov. CB10 requested feedback to the district office at bk10@cb.nyc.gov. The CB10's Traffic and Transportation will be providing feedback to the New York City DOT. So there were 50 proposed locations. These were posted on the community board's website and distributed via email. There are hyperlinks to each location on that list. So over the last month, the board has received feedback. First, we've received 2 petitions that were circulating in Bay Ridge. The first was from older adults, which garnered about 1,000 signatures. The second was a change.org petition, which had 862 signatures. We also received about 30 emails and phone calls. So on the older adult petition, the petition expresses concerns and fears of Bay Ridge older adults currently encountering with electric and gas scooters, not abiding by the rules of the road. Their ask is to require Lyft to provide educational information on street safety, concerns of older adults, reduce the number of stations, reduce the number of bikes per station, reduce stations that remove street parking. The change.org petition has a section called Our Ask to develop a more balanced, community-driven plan with far fewer stations in appropriate locations, or remove City Bike from Bay Ridge entirely. If a fair and respectful solution cannot be reached, eliminate stations that disrupt parking or compromise the privacy of single-family homes. Next, there were some general concerns that we received via email. I'll just run through them really quickly. The number of additional new stations is excessive and not necessary. That was mostly, again, from the petition signatures, the change.org petition, which I just read for you. A number of suggestions were received to reduce the number of bikes per station, which will address the issues stated above, but still allow for stations to be with walking distance of users. Additional concerns were raised about supporting a private company, Lyft, that does not have a great track record with maintaining docks and will compete with local stores that rent bikes. Several concerns were raised about how accessible city bikes actually are given their size and weight. There were concerns raised about removing parking spaces for bikes with a significant percentage of the population who are not able to ride bikes, like older adults who rely more on cars as their mode of transportation. A number of residents were concerned about pedestrian safety and making streets less safe with an increase in traffic. E-bike enforcement or lack thereof is one of the biggest complaints that the district office does receive. And I mentioned the petition. The Bay Ridge Towers, the director of the Bay Ridge Towers submitted a letter to the board. Bay Ridge Air Rights is asking for a pause on adding station in the northern portion of the district until repairs are completed to the parking lots for the Bay Ridge Towers. Over 500 cars have been displaced due to necessary repair work to the parking complex lots. There are 2 for each of the towers. The parking area has been compromised due to water runoff from the BQE. Bay Ridge Air Rights is also asking DOT to reevaluate the stations near the tower given their current situation. So then we received location-specific comments, and I'm just going to run through them really quickly because they were specific to the locations that were provided by DOT. So number 4, the location at Ridge Boulevard and Bay Ridge Avenue, the west roadbed could be moved to an area, to 1 block south to one of the 3 no standing zones of the intersection of Ridge Boulevard at 70th Street. The next was number 6, Colonial Road at 71st Street, could be moved to 1 block south to one of the 3 no standing zones at the intersection of Ridge and 70th again. Location-specific concerns, number 9, Colonial Road between 76th and 77th Street. The district office received several calls and emails regarding this location. Most callers did not agree with placing 2 city bike locations within 1 residential block made sense. Homeowners questioned the need for bikes on this block that is not heavily trafficked or near a commercial area. Number 24, which is Colonial Road between 78th and 79th Street. The district office received several calls and emails regarding this location. Again, callers did not agree with placing a station on a residential block and in front of a private home. Question the need for bikes on a block that is not heavily trafficked or near a commercial area. The next was number 10, Shore Road between 79th and 80th Street. This was viewed as a better option for city bike stations instead of number 9 and 24, only a few blocks away. Number 47, 4th Avenue between 99th and 100th Street. The district office received a few emails about this location because it's in front of a building with several medical offices, including an orthopedist. People with mobility problems are often dropped off in front of the building, sometimes by ambulette, and a bike station could create difficulties for patients. Numbers 36, Ridge Boulevard between 89th and 91st Street. This is in front of the former visitation school. Since this is no longer a school and will be developed, should this location be paused until until plans are filed for this location, because there will be development. Next is number 44 on 96th and Marine. The south sidewalk could be moved to one of the two pedestrianized areas of the intersection of Ridge, Marine, and 95th Street. Number 46 is Fort Hamilton Parkway near 97th and Marine. This is in front of the park. It was just a question, did City Bike know that there are plans here for a redesign for this location, which does include part of the sidewalk area. So the person who shared that with us wanted us to provide that information to New York City DOT in case they are not aware. Number 38, which is 5th Avenue between 88th and 90th Streets. There was concern about the location being near the post office, a car dealership, and a bus stop. 43, Fort Hamilton Parkway between 85th and 86th Street, which is a sidewalk location, concern that it's a busy intersection with a bus lane and a bike lane. Number 28, 85th Street between Narrows and Colonial. There was a concern that this location is too crowded during school hours and bikes could be vandalized. We had some suggested locations that were emailed to the district office. We received a number of calls saying that there may include additional locations near the 7th Avenue protected bike lane, particularly near the bridges over the expressway, 75th Street and 3rd Avenue in the no parking zone, and Marine Avenue and Oliver in the no standing zone and near the large apartment complexes. There was a reply that was posted to the change.org petition from Council Member Justin Brannan. He thanked everyone for reaching out about this. As it stands, about 20 of the 50 proposed city bike locations would actually take away parking. Most are on wide sidewalks and street areas that are already no parking. Our office is working on getting that 20 down to 0, and we feel that we already have alternative locations for the proposed spots that would take away parking. I will add that any city bike docks, even ones on wide sidewalks that are not used, will be on our list to have removed. I should also add that the decision to bring City Bike to Bay Ridge was done by DOT, which means City Hall and the mayor's office. In the end, we want this to work for the neighborhood, which is why we will continue to fight any spot that the community thinks is wrong. If you have any specific locations that you think are particularly bad, please let us know. And that concludes all of the feedback that was provided to the district office. So I'm going to stop my share, Jack, and I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, so here's how I would like to run tonight's meeting. So we had quite a few discussion last time around this. So I'm going to open up for committee comments for the first, let's say, 8 or so minutes until about 7:30, at which point we'll turn it over to, or earlier, at which point we'll turn it over to the community to gather further feedback, and then we can make a committee recommendation. So we'll start with the committee first. I see a few hand raised already. We'll go with, Josephine, please let me know if there's anyone in the room. We'll go with Doris first.
Doris, you're on mute.
We just had an application for a sidewalk cafe. We know for sidewalk cafes, there are specific requirements for sidewalk clearance. It has to be, I think it's 8 feet for pedestrians to access. What is the clearance required when city bikes are placed on the sidewalk?
It's 6 feet.
It's 6 feet. It's not, it's less, which I think, and that does not include the space required to remove the bike from the dock.
Right. I did pose that question to DOT and they said it was a 6-foot clearance was required.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, and I'm actually glad Doris brought that up because it's sort of in a similar direction that I wanted to go in. I think there's a lot of really good benefit from having, alternate, additional modes and alternate modes of transportation. And in particular, we can see a lot of traffic, good traffic come into Bay Ridge. We can see a lot of good traffic bicycle into Bay Ridge from Brooklyn. We can see a lot of good traffic, take the ferries, pick up a bike, and dock at another station. It's really good. On that level, I think it's a really constructive thing to have for us. My concern has always been about how DOT sets this up, not just with the docking stations, but with the street configurations, because there's been so many accidents, and it's not the fault of any one person, but because of the way the streets are being configured, either pedestrian or cyclist or e-cyclist or motor vehicle, they're confronting new configurations in the streets, and the more traffic that we do bring in is going to, create more safety concerns. But to Doris's point, and from what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Josephine, Jack, the bikes that will use the sidewalk are the e-bikes, and the e-bikes are actually the ones that are finding the most increase in use. They're the newer bikes, but these pedal assisted bikes are getting a lot more use. And I'm going to wager that, you know, knowing human nature, if I had a choice between pedaling on a large, cumbersome bicycle or getting an e-bike, I'm going to opt to get an e-bike. So that does make me concerned that we have more e-bike traffic, because even if the speeds are capped at 17, 15 miles an hour, you come across a blind spot in these lanes when you're parallel to motor traffic and you've got parked cars between a bike lane and the motor lanes. It's dangerous. And I just worry about that increase. That's all. So to keep it in perspective, to keep it constructive, a lot of benefits, but we have to work together to make it good. And I appreciate Justin's comments as well in all of this, because I know they're working on this.
Yeah, and per our last meeting, e-bikes are I think categorically different than the moped, which we find a lot of issues within the community. So just to kind of keep those in mind. Daniel, and then we'll go to community members in the room.
Yeah, so I want to sort of respond to what Chris said, because I share a lot of what he said with the benefits of bringing City Bike to Bay Ridge. I think first of all, this will be an important step in connecting us to the rest of the neighborhood. It will give people working in Brooklyn with family living in other parts of Brooklyn more options to get around besides just the subway or driving. It'll improve access to the ferry, which right now is very difficult for people to get to. And it'll improve access to the subway. People who live on Shore Road or in the higher avenues and need to get there, they'll be able to get to Fourth Avenue quicker. Um, I think where we need to sort of be careful when we're talking about this is the concerns that people have about e-bikes. That's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is improving access to ordinary bikes that have been used in the rest of the city and are creating an alternative for people. I frankly, and no disrespect, Chris, I frankly disagree with the assumption that adding these docks is somehow going to cause people to move over to e-bikes more. I think actually the opposite is going to happen. We're going to create additional options. And I think also, we have to be clear that these docks are creating alternatives for people, young people in the neighborhood who might not own a car yet and are looking at a decision over whether they need to buy a car or not. And what these docks are going to do is show people that there's another option before owning a car. So, you know, I'm always a believer that creating more alternatives for transportation is actually a good way to reduce traffic, because ultimately you're giving people ways to get off the road. Um, And finally, I just want to say in terms of, the safety concerns that people have. Again, I want to emphasize that these city bikes are different from e-bikes, but also, frankly, the greatest risk to people's safety right now, and that's older adults, that's children, that's people of all ages, all physical abilities, are cars that have killed 5 people in the neighborhood in the last 5 years, um, that drive recklessly on Shore Road and everywhere else. And this is an important step, I think, to make sure that we are providing alternatives to that. I'm, more than happy to talk about ways that we can improve safety and that Lyft can, educate people on bike safety. I'm all for that. But I think to actually address the real safety problem that we have around transportation, adding these docks is a really important step.
Thank you, Daniel. Sorry, Jay Marie, I saw your hand go. You have to go before we go to the room. So please, you can go first, and then we'll turn into the room.
Thanks so much. I just wanted to once again, talk about this and that we were approached about this, or it was spoken to Community Board 10, using our city bike expansion was a way to help expand transportation alternatives, that people are using bicycles for transportation, not just for recreation, as some of us may have categorized bicycles. I understand that. So if we're looking at Bay Ridge and we're looking at our map, if you looked at some of the places, and I really appreciate that Josephine made those hyperlinks to all of the different locations that were proposed. If you look, for example, at I believe it was number 40, that was by the train station on 93rd and 4th Avenue. And it's a spot I'm really familiar with as well. So you see that the bikes over there by the train station, I can see how that would be something that would make it that transportation hub that's been mentioned so many times. We also know that down by Shore Road, it's really hard to get to that ferry, and that the bikes near the ferry would make sense for people, or near those bus stops on Shore Road, and where people could use it for transportation or for recreation. We also have heard a lot of talk about the bike lanes, the protected bike lanes on 7th Avenue, and how that would make it convenient for people. So we have like 3 main arteries that are running through our neighborhood that would simplify and help people who want to use bicycles for transportation. But we've also heard from a lot of community residents who are really concerned about the city bike location near their private homes. Now, I understand that there are some who are in favor of it in front of their homes, but there were really many that we heard that had concerns about it. And we also heard from many businesses that had concerns about it, because as Doris pointed out, especially with sidewalk cafes, and we even just had that vote for a sidewalk cafe a few moments ago, it's really crowded. It's really crowded along our 3rd Avenue, with all of our restaurants and businesses. So it's not that we were against having city bike come into the neighborhood, but we wanted to really make sure that it was placed in a way that really served the people of our community, and not be an overload to our community, which is what a lot of the petitions and residents and all those calls that Josephine mentioned and the emails she's received, that's really where people brought up a lot of their concerns. So we really have to be receptive to that as well. Thank you.
Yeah. And Josephine, if you wouldn't mind help running the meeting within the room, I don't see any hands, so.
So in the room, Jack Staley has been patiently raised his hand, so maybe we could go to him and then we'll go back to Steve.
Okay.
Okay. I'm glad to see so many people here. This is amazing. I wanted to provide a little bit of context and a little bit of explanation, because I know not everyone was able to sit through DOT's full presentation. First of all, just in terms of safety, I think it's important to look at things in context. In CB10, we have never had a pedestrian killed by a moped a bicycle or an e-bike.
I
It's
don't
never happened.
I don't know if that's accurate.
Maybe we've had one.
Yeah,
possibly.
I know we had in the protected by. I think we had one. A bike, a cyclist, I think, was killed by a moped. On Irvington Avenue, and there's been serious injuries by.
But let's
hit
let's
by-
let's put this into context. Of course, one is always too many, right? But on an annual basis, I think it's undisputed that we have one or two pedestrians killed by motor vehicles.
One is too many.
Sure.
Right.
I'm just pointing out that in comparison to cars, the risk posed by e-bikes is less. In the history of the city bike program, right, where we're talking about 30 million rides or more each year, there have been two documented pedestrian fatalities citywide out of hundreds of millions of rides. So it's also very, very low risk compared to motor vehicles. So I think that context is important to keep in mind. I think the context of parking is also important to keep in mind. We don't know exactly how many parking spaces are in CB10, how many on-street parking spaces, but we would estimate that in the expansion area that we're talking about, we're probably looking at 6,000 or 7,000 on-street parking spaces. And we're talking about taking away perhaps 40 of those spaces, a very small number. But these are real considerations. So we have to ask ourselves, like, what are we getting out of it, right? If you're a bike rider, great. You know, city bikes a nice thing to have. If you're not, then you're not going to make use of it. But what it provides for all of us actually is improved pedestrian safety. And the way it does this, and actually number 4 is a good example, Bay Ridge Avenue and Colonial Road, where we had a pedestrian struck by a motor vehicle last year, struck and killed. It's a good example of this. What these stations provide is what's called daylighting, right? They provide increased visibility at the corners, right? So the reason that DOT places many of these stations in the roadbed at the corner of an intersection is so that drivers approaching that intersection can see who's coming off the sidewalk into the crosswalk, right? If there's a vehicle parked there, right? If instead of a city bike dock, you have a truck or SUV parked there, drivers approaching that intersection can't see people coming into the intersection, walking into it, right? They especially cannot see children. They especially cannot see the elderly, right? And this citywide is a cause of a lot of pedestrians being killed, right? So there's a benefit beyond just the bikes, right? There's a benefit that to this that actually increases pedestrian safety at these intersections. And that's the reason that DOT has placed so many of these stations in the roadbed at the corners of the intersections. It's to enhance pedestrian safety. So let's keep all that in mind.
All right, we're going through committee members first, and then Jack, I'm sorry, it's a little hard to juggle everyone here, but I'll turn it back to you. Do you want to, we're going to continue with board members, and then we're going to turn it to the public, correct?
I think I would like to hear from the public now. I think every board member has had a chance to speak at least once, I think.
Jack, may I make one quick comment?
Sure.
I just, I really don't share anything unless I kind of researched it before. And since I think 2024, Staley, you might know this better than I, the e-bike ridership is like the favored ridership. It's like increased 66%. And I'm really not looking at this as an us against them car versus bike thing. I think that is a failed argument. And I don't think we should approach it that way because there are probably a number of incidents, and I could attest to one of them, when a bike ran into a car, but it never gets reported. And someone could have been injured or they ran off on their bicycle. So I really wouldn't go there with that because there is the potential. There's a real safety concern. Okay. And Manhattan is not the same as Bay Ridge. Yes, there are a lot more motorists and people who own cars here than in Manhattan. So you can't mix apples with oranges. We have to do this the right way, and we have to do it together. We have to do this so that we promote alternative transportation, really promote business in this community and do it right. Okay. So let's not take sides. Let's try to really look at this in a comprehensive way. That's it. Sorry, Jack. Thank you so much.
It's all good. Yeah, I'm just kind of mindful of time, and I will definitely have plenty of time for community members to discuss this, and especially with any action we want to do moving forward. But I do want to make sure we hear from the community to make sure that, because they came out to speak on this topic.
So there's a lot of people here in the room I know want to speak, so maybe we could ask to limit your comments, and if someone else says what you wanted to, we could continue. Yes, Richard, or Samian?
I'll be as brief as possible. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Josephine, thank you. CB10, thank you for what you always do. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Richie Barsamian, and I am a lifetime Bay Ridge resident. Staley, question for you, sir. As much as I respect your decency and your presentation, one would assume by your loud advocacy that you are a bicycle rider. Am I correct?
I am a bicycle
There
rider.
you go.
If you could just
Not
direct it to the
singling you
chair.
out.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
but
Right.
your advocacy was very obvious. There is clearly an arbitrary war, and there is no other term, against car owners in southern Brooklyn. There is clearly, and thank you, everyone. There is clearly a very, I'm sorry to say this, Josephine, what I view as irresponsible approach dividing bike riders and car owners. It is not one over the other. There is a way to achieve détente. There is a way to bring an increase in bicycles, but not at the volume that they recommend and not at all the locations they recommend.
Exactly.
Why are we not approaching a standardized solution outside police stations, municipal parking lots, libraries, areas of minimized impact to parking? Because unfortunately, Josephine, with the sidewalk cafes, with the loss of parking spots due to construction, with everything else, parking is already at an extraordinary premium. And now let's take into account.
Just to be clear,
And protected bike lanes.
sidewalk cafes do not impact parking spaces. Those are roadway cafes, and the one that we voted on earlier.
I understand,
was a sidewalk cafe. I just want to be very clear
they're
on that.
temporary. They will be removed, Jack. I understand that. But we need to examine a standardized formula for the placement and expansion of any docking stations. No one is discussing, except the 50 people that showed up Saturday at the press conference on 3rd Avenue in the rally, against this. We're not against bikes. We're not against tourism. We're not against recreation. We're not against transportation alternatives. But why is it that everything is done in an arbitrary way that results in the loss of parking? So here is a question. For the several months a year where bicycles are difficult, if not impossible to use, due to dangerous and difficult weather conditions, snow, ice, heavy rain. You have subways, you have buses, you have car shares. Why are we continuing to remove parking spots and obstruct emergency vehicles? Why do we need, go to Wakeman Place. I was there a week ago. About 80% of the bikes
so
were
many
there.
people who want to
Thank you,
speak.
Josephine.
Thank you.
I also want to be very clear that a couple months ago we did have a car share presentation, and we were very anti car share at the
We'll
time.
go around the room
given that
this, all
feedback.
right, we'll go around this room this way, this gentleman, then we'll go around this way. Yes. So,
Hi, thanks, everybody for being here. My name's Benjamin. Stand up. My name's Benjamin. I'm a city bike user. I was a bike owner before that. I had 3 bikes stolen, moved to city bike. It's been wonderful. I'm also a big fan of all the businesses in Bay Ridge. My wife and I go probably once a month to Bay Ridge, and we've eaten our way around. Favorites, I won't list all of them, but I love so many wonderful restaurants in Bay Ridge. So I, for one, am excited. I hear everyone's concerns. I'm excited to have some of these stations to be able to come and continue to go out in Bay Ridge and eat your wonderful food. I split
Okay,
my
thank
time
you.
in Central Park and
so you don't live in Bay Ridge. Okay. Listen, yes, I'm sorry. We have to direct.
Can I finish? I'll say one more thing.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just want to say that if you could direct it to the committee, and please
Yeah,
no
you could-
cross talking, we have a lot of people who want to speak, must be respectful of everyone who's.
Yeah, so there is
trying
a
to speak.
concern about businesses in Bay Ridge, and if this is good for businesses, I will say I'm one person who's excited to go to more businesses in Bay Ridge. So that's.
Okay, so next.
Hi, my name is Kim. I have 2 things, and I think it's gonna be kind of present at home. Why 50? Start at 5. All right, and why in front of private homes pays the highest?
That's nice.
I I just want to comment just on the Wi-Fi. We do have 6 city bikes. This is on presentation from last time. We do have 6 city bikes on the northern border against CB7 within CB10, and those see like exceptionally high ridership, which is why DOT mentioned thinks that expansion into Bay Ridge would be helpful because of increased ridership within those, I believe, 6 city bike stations already in CB10.
Okay, all right, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, next comment.
Quickly.
Yes,
The volume, 50 is insane. Start with 5. If it takes off, do 10, let me finish, please. 10, 20, then go on, go crazy if it's successful. And also put them by the ferries, put them by train stations, put them by libraries, buses. It just makes sense, don't it? And
Yeah.
my biggest problem is starting at 50. That makes no sense. You know, start at 5 and listen, God bless them, if it takes off, go to 55. But
Okay.
don't start.
all right, thank you. Next? Yes.
My biggest concern is that they're gonna place these stations in front of people's private homes. People who bought these homes many years ago and are still there and wanna live there, but have to look out every day and come out and see 10, 15 bikes in front of their house. That's unfair. We pay the highest taxes in Brooklyn.
Right.
And we're gonna look at the bikes in front of our houses that we don't even want. That's not fair. Sorry.
Okay,
That's
thank
my
you.
biggest
So my name is Lena. I have grown up in Bay Ridge. I think it's important for me to point out that I do not have a driver's license. I do not drive. I mostly get around by foot or by subway. But I'm very much against putting city bikes in these stations in residential areas, specifically because we have a higher elderly population than other neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And people need to, people rely on things like Accessoride, they rely on their families to drive them around. So if there are these stations right in front of their house and their doorway is right there, they're gonna have to navigate around the city bikes to get out.
Exactly.
And that is not fair. That is ableist and that is ageist, and we deserve better, especially considering we need to advocate for the people that, struggle with mobility and things like that, that aren't able to use the city bikes because they're the ones that might have difficulty because of these things. And same with sidewalks. If there are city bike stations put onto sidewalks, even if there is a large clearance, it takes room to get the city bikes out. And if someone's in a wheelchair, if someone, needs help, getting around from a family member, if they use a cane, it can be a real pain, and it can also be a trip hazard. If these things are relatively close to the curb, someone could trip and fall on them if it's in a residential area. And I don't think that's okay. So
I agree. And we're gonna keep going around. Yes.
Hi, my name is Daniel Prebut. I am a Bay Ridge resident. I live here. I'm gonna give you guys some mathematics and you can look at it how you want. 50 stations with approximately 16 bikes each equals 800 bikes. The landmass of Bay Ridge is 2.2 square miles. Do that math for a minute. Seems a little over concentrated. A lot of our residential areas have narrow streets presenting increased safety hazards, traffic interference for pedestrians, riders, and motorists who all have to use the same space. Now, it was mentioned that no one's gotten killed by a bike, but how many bikes have violated the law because they don't have to have license, registration, and insurance? They ride on the sidewalks. Will these extra 800 bikes exacerbate that situation? I leave it to you. I'm not making. Thank you. And then one more thing. How many times have you read about city bikes being used in committing crime?
Yes.
They rip off the bike from the dock and then they take off and they commit a crime, can't be tracked, right? And one more thing, will this plan in its current form be sustainable and profitable for whoever it is that's operating this thing? Because are they really going to be able to generate income from 800 bikes? Half of the people around here either have bikes already or don't ride bikes. I'll explain why. Hold on, Lena. The 2020 census says 111,952 Bay Ridge residents. The Bay Ridge Center in 2023 estimated 24,600 people over the age of 60. All right, now I know some of us, and I'm over 60 now too. Some of us ride still, right? I know you still ride, but the point is a lot don't, and that's a major bicycle.
No.
Okay, no,
Just the opposite.
okay, but the point is, I mean, and to your point, sir, a lot of senior citizens don't ride bikes, and that's almost a little under a quarter of our population here. I just gave you the math. Draw your own conclusions.
So how many people, sorry, how many people say live in Bay Ridge again?
Hi, you mentioned stations and docks by subways and the ferry and the bus. Those are great. That's what it's supposed to be. But when you guys who live here get on those bikes from the ferry, you're biking home. That's why you need bike stops in residential areas, because that's the destination. That's where people started. They started at home and they go to the ferry, they go to Sunset Park, they go to wherever. But that's where the bike trips start, at home. 90% of those are gonna start at home. Wakeman Place was mentioned on Ridge Boulevard. I was just there this afternoon. It's a 19 dock station on Wakeman and Ridge. 11 of those docks were empty. Those bikes were in use. Bikes go in and out all day long. You may see it full. I may go home tonight and walk by there and I'll see it's full because people came home and they docked those bikes and walked home from that dock. So I just want to make clear that that's why the docks have to be in residential areas. That's why 50 docks are needed, so they're close to people's homes. You guys may not want to use it, that's fine, but some of your neighbors do, and it has to be within walking distance of their. Thank you.
My name is Florence Dean. Been a resident of the neighborhood for decades. I do have a written statement, which I would ask the committee accept as part of the record. I think part of the issue is the cart before the horse. Why 50? What does the usage data show? What does it warrant? There's a lot of assumptions being made that people are at Wakeman Place, that's where they live and they're living. I think that one in particular, the only data I saw was that 21 was the average usage there.
Per day.
Yeah, per day. That could be one person pulling it in, it could be one person pulling it out. We don't know. What is the data that is driving the decision for 50? Maybe it is 10, maybe it's 0, maybe it's 100, who knows? But there's no usage data. And when I questioned Brandon's office and when I called the community board, I was told that this was top down from the city. Each area had to find 50 locations for city bike. That is frankly, yes, backwards. I mean, the data should be driving the decision, not the other way around. And it just is, there are a lot of people in this neighborhood who on a daily basis can give you chapter and verse of an e-bike riding on the street, going through the red lights, hitting or almost hitting people. And you're told, well, that's a police enforcement. Well, you know, it just is unacceptable. You need to appreciate that the health and safety risks are considerable. If the data warrants a solution, get a solution. But don't put people at risk, particularly the young children and the seniors, without having any real feel for this being needed. And this is also a neighborhood where, rightly or wrongly, most people who use bikes, husband uses a bike, own it. They don't use City Bike. And the only explanation I heard was that City Bike's business model that they worked out with the city was that stations would be located with a certain location so that they could maximize their revenue. That's not the function of this community board, to figure out how to maximize the revenue.
That's not quite true.
of a private entity.
Okay.
That's not quite true. Thank you.
Daniel Pecoraro, Bay Ridge resident the last 10 years, and prior to that, born and raised in Southeast Queens, where the car culture is prevalent. Whereas I moved here because I knew I could live here without a car. I grew up with a family friend in Bay Ridge, knew the neighborhood, knew the vitality of street life, 3rd, 5th, in 86 than elsewhere. And I recognize, as someone who has a license, doesn't own a car, has a bike, but is also a City Bike member, that this is an opportunity not only for daylighting to make the streets safer for all involved, drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, but also a boon in terms of access to transportation and to business. The gentleman here, who I recognize is outside of CB10, raised an important point that this is an opportunity both intra-neighborhood and inter-neighborhood for restaurants, for shops throughout the district to increase their customer base. There are positive correlations between bicycle infrastructure, including city bike stations, with increase in business. Every time a new bike lane opens up or a new expansion of the city bike network, there's hue and cry from business owners saying, this is going to impact my business. And it does positively, where it increases their revenues. And so when thinking of this, I urge thinking about not only the residents of this neighborhood, cyclists, drivers, pedestrians, or otherwise, but also when it comes to the Fifth Avenue bid, the 86th Street bid, and the merchants of Third, who would see their businesses' bottom lines improve, particularly at a precarious time in our economic lifestyle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
I'm 88 years old and I am considered in very good health. But my legs are not like they used to be. So I'm in my car and the biggest problem is parking. Do you have that problem?
As a matter of fact.
Oh, wait, no, please, I'm sorry, please.
No,
That's
all I have to
Please,
Okay, thank
please
you.
address
I
me.
need close parking.
Okay, thank you very much.
Been a resident
I
of Bay Ridge,
appreciate it.
my wife
I
and
want-
I for
I
25 years.
appreciate that, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, just two quick points. My name is Danielle Long. I'm a Bay Ridge resident, lifelong. Just a comment on site 24, which is near many of our homes. That corner in particular is well known for accidents. Two people have died there.
This is Marine.
I don't let my.
I'm sorry, what's the
78th and
location?
Colonial.
78th and Colonial,
I
okay.
don't let my children cross the corner there, even with holding their hands. And so I just think that it should be reconsidered.
Okay.
It also floods heavily, even in moderate rain like it did today. So I'm not sure how that would affect the city bike documentation. And then I also have a question, because in Councilman Brandon's response, he said that any docking stations that weren't used would be removed.
Yes.
That seems backward.
Yeah.
Isn't that a waste of money?
I mean, I
So
think.
let me clarify two of those points. So number 24, Colonial Road and 78th Street is a daily location. That means they chose that location in order to increase visibility, right? So I believe they chose that location because of a potential pedestrian
You can't
catastrophes.
park in that spot already because it was eliminated as a parking spot because of visibility. You can't put-
Correct. So that's why they're inflating that in order to continue to make use of the spot, right? In order
No
to
accidents there though, so you still want people getting on and off of bikes on that corner?
For the accident, it's more
increase visibility. Was that before or after the late daylight?
Parking in that spot.
No, they can't.
Okay.
They can't and are.
It's a narrow roadway and you have pedestrians, bicyclists, and cars.
So sorry, was the pedestrian?
Okay, all right,
Was it-
and maybe if
was
we
the-
could continue to go through all the public, I don't know.
I just would like to know whether the pedestrian fatalities happened before or after the daylight.
Stanchions that go at the station, at the docking station, aren't those about 6 feet tall? Can somebody answer that?
No, the stanchions are.
Right, the payment.
The sign. They're about 6 feet tall?
Probably 5 feet.
Each city by station.
I didn't realize they were.
There's like a
Here's a
station.
Okay.
At the park right here.
Yeah.
I've gone and worked all over the borough of Brooklyn at night, days and everything for the last 34 years, born and raised here as well. Now, all the city bike stations have a big map, terminal, whatever you want to call
Oh,
it.
that's what.
You're gonna put that on the corner where already we have 2 deaths, multiple accidents over quite a few years, is the reason why they took the 1 parking spot away. So there is visibility. So we're gonna put this in that spot and it's gonna be safe.
Yeah, I think in general, city bikes have
think
proven
that's-
to
that's
increase
fine.
daily locations. And I honestly like,
Yeah, I'll explain, guys.
I really can't see anyone here.
Knocked down twice, the cement wall, if my kids were there, they'd be dead.
All right.
This is a really.
Jack, do you want to look at that with one location?
Yeah,
What, I'm sorry, what number was it? It was
24.
24.
Okay.
my front yard
Um,
was feeding my baby.
And for context, could you let us know what accident, what type of accident was there, please?
Yeah, and when did it happen?
They don't hear.
When were the accidents? What happened during the accident on 24?
Okay. All right, if we have, yeah.
My name's Ed Shannon, I live across the street. So that's a hill that comes down 78th Street. So even now, where that car is, you still have to creep out to the middle. And that's where, since 2012, I've been trying to get a four-way stop sign. The DOT came and did a survey, which was totally incorrect, because I saw the results. And they told me, and I gave them 4 accidents, 2 broke
did
my
answer
lawn
that.
and were on my lawn. And they said, no, we can't give it to you. Eventually, they gave us this. This has actually worked. We haven't had any serious accidents, but as she says, we're still fearful, right? But if you see, you come down, if you put a station there, right, and that little sign he's talking about, you're gonna have to creep out. There's gonna be a distraction of people hanging out by the bikes, right? And it's just not worth it. It's a safety concern. Other than if you agree with City Bike or not, I'm concerned with the safety issue that's at hand.
Can I just add to that really quickly? The point is, that one and the other one further down Colonial are 1 block away from the proposed one down in Shore Road. If somebody's able to ride a bicycle, they can walk an extra block to a safer place in Shore Road Park, and that would eliminate 2 stations that aren't necessary.
Okay,
Yeah, that really should be
That was
consolidated. Okay,
noted.
thank you so much. That was, I believe that was number 9 and 24. I think that was noted earlier.
Okay,
And they're supposed to put the other station across the street from my house. Historically, there have been, I'm in the house 30 years. There have been at least 15 accidents coming up 77th Street, making the turn onto Colonial Road.
Okay, Jack, yeah, we have some more hands raised in the room from non-board members. And then we have 3 attendees who have their hands raised. So
the signs though being a obstruction. to
yeah,
the
so,
building.
so the signs that you showed in that photo was not part of the presentation of DOT, noting if they're in every single location or if they'll be at specific locations. That wasn't part of the presentation that was sent to us. So we can absolutely ask that question for sure.
If claiming that there is visibility, then they're 100%
right.
committed to visibility.
Understood.
But right now, I don't believe that.
But they don't, it depends if they're on the corner or they're in.
Yeah, I don't know
Other side
if
of
they're
the rack.
placing them right. It wasn't part of the DOT presentation. Okay, so we had yes, you in the back?
I'm by Owl's Head. We've been there like over a dozen years. I appreciate your consideration of the city bike proposal. I am a city bike member and also ride a private bike. And it's good to get services in South Brooklyn because often you feel that the neighborhood is more neglected than parts of Manhattan. So it is good to finally, after years and years of waiting, to have City Bike come to the neighborhood. If you don't use City Bike, just to keep in mind that it is designed for shorter rides. So the idea that you're going to the train from where you live or coming back. Right now, I'm much more likely to go to Sunset in Industry City rather than the businesses on 3rd and 5th Avenue down in Bay Ridge, because it's just easier to get to than walking and waiting for buses that don't come that easily. So, I would get more business down in Bay Ridge. So right now, the edge of City Bike expansion. So it's hard to find docking. And that was my concern. I wrote to Councilmember Brennan, for example, and the DOT, that the edges of City Bike expansion need to have more stops, because that's where you have, you have to dock. And then if you live further away, that's the edge of the City Bike service area. So that's going to be more congested. So when I come home, for example, there's often no docking stations, right? So you have to go up, you have to go back up to 3rd, come back, look around for docking stations. So it's designed for transportation within small areas, right? So just to kind of know how it works. And there are problems definitely with the business model. I don't really support Lyft and all that stuff. But that is a separate issue. That's not an issue of services that we should have as any other New York City resident. And we deserve them in South Brooklyn. And it's nice that finally, after years and years, we are getting them here.
In moderation.
I'm a lifelong resident of Bay Ridge. I know a lot of people look to come to Bay Ridge because it's not the city feeling. I respect the fact that people, you know, want that, but a lot of people still want the city feeling, but the suburb as well. So people with families like to come to Bay Ridge. It's very much, you know, people search for it. I know the businesses. I don't want people to get the wrong idea, but I think certain type of people love Bay Ridge and they don't want it to be commercialized like the city where you go and you have to look left and right, try to cross or whatever. That's just my opinion. I mean, I like the small town feeling of being in Bay Ridge.
Vincent DeMeo, born in Bay Ridge Hospital, June 17th, 1963, been a resident of this town for my whole life. One thing, connectivity to the rest of the city. When the R train doesn't run well, which it often doesn't in the morning, it's my choice. I would love to be able to get on a bike somewhere near my house and be able to get to maybe 36th Street. Second thing, if you look on that map, Bay Ridge is one of the few blue spots around the city that is not connected to the rest of the city. Everywhere else there are city bikes there, and it makes Bay Ridge, along with the R train, makes Bay Ridge not a place to go. People won't come here because they can't come here with their city bikes. Addressing certain issues as far as looks are concerned, I don't agree. I don't see how looking at a bicycle is any worse than looking at a car, especially with noisy mufflers and gas. As far as more elderly in the community concerned, I don't know. Does Bay Ridge have more elderly than any other place in the city?
We rank the city.
Secondly, parking spaces being taken up are at a minimum. I heard it was like 2% or something along along those lines. Crime is that a fact as well? Is that a statistic where crimes are being done on city bikes?
Yes.
City bikes alone?
Okay,
City
all right.
bikes alone?
I'm sorry, let's not have let's just get it.
I'm addressing points that were made, and I'm saying that is it a fact? And that's it. And as far as a city bike station on the corner, does that obstruct the view any more than an SUV or a vehicle on the corner? I don't think so. I think it actually clears the view.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes.
Hey, my name is Matt Paris Gondola. I'm a Bay Ridge resident. Just echoing a lot of points here, right? Whether you support city bikes or you don't, shouldn't it be the other way around, that each site is carefully considered and justified? I feel like they all got thrown at us,
Right.
and we're picking them off. Where is the study, right? Show us the study, show us the justification for each site, so we could be articulate when we argue against them or for them. I think it's the onus is on City Bike to provide that to us as opposed to the other way around, which is what we've been forced into.
Then you know they have them.
They have a reasoning of why.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, let's go forth talking. So Jack, I'd like to go to the attendees who are in the room, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, they've been waiting patiently. I've gotten some.
Yes.
So let's see, James Peterson. James, you're allowed to talk.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And then for the short presentation in the beginning, I just wanted to say, as a city bike rider, as a cyclist, as somebody who drives and walks around and takes the bus, I think that, having more options for transportation is critical. I think it's also, by the way, a really quiet way of getting around. And I live right on 278, and it's a really, really loud road. And I know I don't really hear cyclists over that. If ever, noting the difference between cyclists and moped. But as with anything, and the importance of the network, and the unreliability of the R train, especially on nights and weekends, would be great to have a a dock at 59th Street, which I think there is, and take it into the neighborhood instead of getting tied up with the bus. And with City Bike, I'd be able to cycle home, not wasting an Uber or, 45 minutes waiting for a train. So I urge everybody to consider that. And thanks to the board again.
Thank you. Rose Pietanza, Rose?
So this is.
Hi. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Hello,
I'm
can you
sorry.
hear me?
Yeah, I must have clicked both. I'm sorry. Just there's two. Rose, you could go for Rosa Pietanza and then Josephine.
Okay. My name's Rosa Pietanza. I'm a little bit deflated here because it just seems to me that this is a done deal. And I saw my sister's efforts in getting the petition out, and she got 860 signatures and 1,000 from the senior citizens. And what I see from Jack is just a little bit of partiality. He seems to be rebutting points that are made that seem to be opposed to the bikes versus, and I apologize, Jack. I probably shouldn't have said that, but even in Justin Brennan's email where he said he would fight the docks that aren't being used, I echo the concerns of my neighbors who believe that we should maybe scratch at least 30 of these bikes for now. Don't move them to a different location. The issue is the excessive number. And by the way, I live on shore and I have walked to our train on 4th Avenue, and it is a 12-minute walk. It is not a long walk. And if we do put some bikes on shore and 4th, or maybe in public spaces as already identified, that will get the result of getting people close to their homes. Maybe not at their doorstep, because I don't know why any one person deserves to have transit right at their doorstep. And so if we can please at least vote to scrap at least 25 of these stations, and maybe that needs to be the compromise. Just scrap them. Please vote for at least scrapping of 25 of these stations. 2.2 miles, you can walk that in under an hour, the whole of the Bay Bridge. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Josephine, you're next.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. So thank you so much. I'm Josephine Pietanza. I am a Bay Ridge resident and I'm a parent of 3. I think, many people have mentioned this. We support environmentally friendly transportation options, but believe that it must be implemented in a way that reflects the unique character and infrastructure of our neighborhood. And I want to reiterate, this isn't about opposing City Bike's concept. It's about scale, placement, and pace of rollout. Installing 50 stations at once in a residential neighborhood like Bay Ridge without infrastructure or density to support that number, it's just excessive and short-sighted. So a couple of key points that I want to make. First, we don't have protected bike lanes or high traffic commercial zones where bike share programs thrive. We have narrow sidewalks, limited parking, and a lot of foot traffic, and especially near schools, churches, and medical offices. And so without the proper infrastructure, bikes will likely end up on sidewalks, increasing the risk of accidents and making our streets less safe for pedestrians, especially over, I forgot what you said, but we have the, 3rd largest adult community or elderly community across the city. Secondly, we're not we're not Brooklyn Heights or Park Slope. We have a lower density neighborhood with more single family homes and fewer people per block. And so this one size fits all plan doesn't make sense. And so we're here asking for a phased approach, start with 15 or 20 stations to satisfy the needs of many of the people that you heard today who are in favor of City Bikes. Monitor usage, collect feedback, and scale up thoughtfully. When I started the petition, I was quite disappointed by the responses I had gotten from Justin's office, just saying that this was a done deal. I created the petition and somebody asked me, what's your goal? And I was like, I don't know, 50 signatures. Over 860 residents who none I know, I just shared it with a couple of people, have signed this petition. They're calling for a more balanced and transparent plan. These are taxpayers, they're longtime residents of Bay Ridge, and their families, many of whom are now questioning, including myself, whether Bay Ridge is still the right fit for me. I have 3 young children. I don't want a city bike station in front of my house. I cannot take my 3 children on a city bike. And so what we're asking here is for a measured approach. And so, you know, I hope I speak for everyone who signed the petition. And I really do hope that Jack and committee members, you do consider a more measured rollout that prioritizes safety, minimizes disruption, and really reflects community needs.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that the role of the committee again and the role of the board here is unfortunately still on a purely advisory case. During the last meeting that we had with DOT, right, they proposed the 50 stations. You know, obviously for us, there's only so much we can do. The more specific in terms of comments, the better. The more specific guidance we can give the DOT, the better. I think in the past, my experience on this committee has been that drives forward the conversation the best. Okay, so I'll clarify that. All right,
Okay,
can we
thank
move
you.
forward for
Yeah.
that?
Teresa Michio, Teresa? Teresa, you should be able to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Private use of public space feels like a land grab. Has that been addressed?
The committee did speak about Lyft, about the corporation last time, but
Yeah, maybe I can quickly answer this. So just to be clear, we're not representatives of DOT. We're
right.
volunteers, right? We're community members just like you. So unfortunately, we can't answer on your behalf. But based on what they said last time, the city bike program is at no cost to the city itself. So the city does not fund city bike at all. But that's basically the discussion there around the cost to the city in terms of providing this service. We had a similar conversation on car share a couple months back, where a similar point was also brought up. But that's a larger public-private partnership sort of conversation as well.
Well, it feels like we live in Bay Ridge and it's our place to live, and somebody wants to come in and move the furniture on us. And they want to move the furniture in a very big way. And a lot of us are saying, nope, we don't want that. So I understand you need facts and all, but I feel, I say that is a very important question to answer. Is this a land grab?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there's 2 more that haven't spoke, Katie, and then Jackie, and then we'll go back to board members. Katie, you can speak. You should be able to
Can you hear
unmute, Katie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you guys. I'm 50 years old. I was born and raised here in Bay Ridge. I'm now a resident off of 78th and Colonial. So although that bike station will not affect my value of my home, I do feel bad for that homeowner right now, because more than likely the value of that home will go down as a result of a bike station. In addition to the flooding that happens all the time, we then have it's a bus block. It's a bus block as well. So in addition to the station being there, we have buses that go down that block, and there's no light and there's only the stop sign. So I would like the board to relay that message to the DOT that that's also a bus block, which makes no sense to then also have a bike station there, because the bus can take anyone to and from 4th Avenue, or it will go down to Narrows, and then that's just 1 block off of Shore Road. My biggest concern is what people have already said, and that is that the rollout of this is 50 stations, and we should do 5 before we get to 50. And thank you very much for tonight.
That's station number 9, Katie. Just so everyone knows.
Okay. Let's see. We have a lot more hands just went up, Jack. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll do 2 and then we'll go back to you. Fatini Lane, Fatini.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. Good evening.
I just wanted to say that City Bike will tremendously increase the ease with which I patronize both shops and restaurants in Bay Ridge. City Bike is meant to support the existing transit systems, and it sounds like the existing docks are already well used. So there's already data to suggest that Bay Ridge needs more bikes, needs more docks. The reason it's 50 is so that people don't have to go blocks and blocks before they find an empty dock to either pick up or drop off their bike. It works like a constellation. It's a network of stations spread throughout the neighborhood. So it's really important that there's enough to support the program in order for it to be successful. Thanks, everyone.
Hanane, Hanane from New York State
Yes.
Assembly.
Hi, Josephine. Can you hear me?
Yes, I could hear you.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. I'm here as a representative on behalf of Assemblyman Michael Tanusis. He wrote a letter to the Commissioner of the DOT, signed off by Congresswoman Molly Takis and also fellow Assemblymember Alec Burkrasny. For those that weren't have not had any notice or knowledge of this, I just wanted to read the letter briefly. Dear Commissioner Rodriguez, as the elected officials who represent Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, I write to express our deep concerns regarding the proposed Phase 3 City Bike expansion plan, specifically the addition of approximately 50 new stations within Brooklyn Community Ward 10. While we recognize the importance of providing alternative transportation options, the current plan raises serious concerns that deeply impact the quality of life for Bay Ridge residents and the vitality of our small business community. Our neighborhood already faces significant parking scarcity, and the installation of city bike docking stations in valuable curbside spaces threatens exacerbates this problem. Many residents, including seniors, rely on street parking due to the limited availability of off-street parking options. The removal of parking spaces will further strain this resource and create an unnecessary hardship for local residents. Additionally, the placement of the city bike docking stations along busy commercial corridors risk disrupting the essential flow of traffic to and from small businesses that depend on customer access and delivery options. At a time when many of our mom and pop shops are still recovering from the economic fallout of recent years, we cannot afford to impose additional barriers that may deter patrons from visiting our local establishments. We urge the Department of Transportation to reconsider the implementation of this expansion and consider installing these docking stations at locations that do not negatively impact the street parking. We're hopeful that the agency is willing to work with our offices, Community Board 10, and the neighborhood stakeholders to explore alternatives to this plan that will protect our commercial corridors from unintended disruptions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know what, we had someone here in the room, and then I'm gonna go look through this list while you speak. Okay.
I guess I'd be one of those seniors. I'm 68. And I have lived here for 25 years, and I own a car and I own a bike and I walk the streets a lot because that's where I get my most of my exercise. So I'm very sensitive. If you can't tell from that description of me, safety matters to me a lot. I raised my family here, my kid crosses the street, etc. I care a lot about safety. As a person who does most of my errands in Bay Ridge, I live at 68th, I shop at Food Town on 92nd. I cannot tell you how nerve-wracking it is to ride my bike to go do errands, and how different it would seem if in fact we had some infrastructure, as someone mentioned, that would make it safe. I mean, I'm scared to drive my car also, I must say, on 3rd Avenue with all the double parking and traffic lights and stop signs are a suggestion merely. And that since COVID, especially, huge issue. That's why we had fatalities, which scare me as well. So about safety versus people who don't care about safety, and bike or pro-bike people don't care about safety, and non-bike riders do care about safety. I think that's false. I don't think that's true. I care about safety a lot, including my own when I do errands in Bay Ridge. And if there were corridors that I could cross Bay Ridge and get things done, it would make my life it's so much cheaper, faster, safer, better for the environment to take my bike down to Food Town than to get in my car, go in that terrible parking lot that they have there, which has so little space, and or try to find a parking spot. It just seems so rational and reasonable to me that we should, as a community, want to have an infrastructure that actually makes it safer, and that's doubly true on e-bikes. I'm as scared as the next person to, to get hit or run over by an e-bike. It's scary to be a driver of them when I've taken city bike e-bikes. They're very heavy and they're hard to control. But the answer to me is not to, push it all away, but to figure out collectively how we provide an infrastructure where everybody can have better transportation. That's really what I want to say.
Thank you. Okay, so, yeah, there are, yeah, one second, you spoke already. So we have a few more people with their hands raised here and about 2 more online. So do you want to go through and we'll cap it at
Yeah,
that?
I would like to go through as many public as possible. We still have some time for community comments and motion afterwards.
Okay.
So yes.
Right, your committee, your board members, so they're handling the public first. We're not going to forget you. Okay, so there's people in the back, way in the back that, you wanted, I'm sorry, the man with the, you're right here, yes.
Hi, I'm Mark. I live around 70th Street, Bay Ridge. I mean, we've already talked about having 24/7, another alternative 24/7 transportation alternative that will actually connect to other public transportation. And also, I would go to more businesses like around in the 80s or 90s. I don't do it now because I don't feel like driving there and spending 10 minutes looking for a parking spot. And if I could have a bike, city bike, that would take me 5 minutes. And the other advantage of the city bike is I don't have to own, maintain, store, or worry about locking up my own bike. And as someone mentioned before, a lot of the nice neighborhoods around the boroughs, they already have city bikes. They've had them for years. And I think it would be nice if we were on par some of those other neighborhoods. And just on the location of number 4, you should move it to 70th and Ridge Boulevard where there's daylighting, because I live right near there and there's always cars parked there.
Okay, got it, number 4. Yes, that's right. Yes.
Other neighborhoods that have the e-bikes without no problem. I don't know if they have all of the DoorDash people, the Buffalo broken people, BMWs. Every BMW has a broken muffler. I have 7 grandchildren, and I'm a woman of a certain age. I bike ride, I drive, and I'm against these things because my daughter actually on Ridge Boulevard and 78th Street was hit by a bike in her BMW. It hurt my dog, my husband. The guy on the bike broke his arm, no insurance. She's still paying insurance. And she had glass in her hair and in her eye for 3 days. I am very against that. Try walking a carriage in Cambridge, pedestrian safety.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
The bikes
Yes.
not pay any of the traffic.
Comment?
Okay, comment, quick,
Just
yep,
a quick comment.
okay.
I just want to know, I mean, I'm in favor of bikes. I think it's wonderful. But do they have to be in front of homes where people are paying $12,000 to $15,000 a year in taxes to live in Bay Ridge? We pay the highest taxes in the city of New York. I mean, in Brooklyn, sorry, not the city. And we have to have bikes in front of our houses. We're paying, are you all paying taxes? Yes, me too.
Okay, all right, okay, I'm sorry, could you please not, yes, please. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, all right, let's, wait. All right, let's keep order and please direct, okay, please no cross talking, we're gonna take one more and then we'll, yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
I've lived in Bay Ridge for a while now, for 13 years I think at this point, but I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. I commute, I'm one of those crazy commuters that actually commutes on bike year round. So I actually bike through the winter and through the rain. I take my kids to school, I work in Fort Greene, I take my kids to school. So I'm one of those people that bikes here. So there's no such thing as bad bike weather, it's just bad. Number 2, the parking spaces issue was raised about like the number of parking spaces. They've already shared this 50 stations is only taking 20 parking spaces. I can share 40, thank you.
I can share on my neighborhood, right in front of my building, there are currently 3 vehicles that have not been moved in 2 months. So you complain about parking spaces, but there are lots of people in Bay Ridge that own a car that don't drive it to work. They drive it once a month, they drive it once a week maybe. So why are we fighting to keep that space for them? That makes no sense. That space should be freed up for people that need Accessorize to pick them up at their building, or people that need to access the curb, UPS, or all the packages that everyone is ordering since the pandemic. When those trucks are double parked blocking the street and you're honking your horn because you can't get by, and then you make a U-turn and go down a one-way street the wrong way. So let's be real about what the actual safety issues are in Bay Ridge. It's when I'm around the block from my house and I have to go down 5th Avenue and the entire block is double parked with cars in the bus stop in front of the other businesses. The bus can't get through. And I have to navigate through that with my son on the back of my bike. There are times when I would love to be able to, and this has been shared already, get back from Sunset Park on a bike because the R train's not coming for 25 minutes and it's the middle of the day. Should I stand there for 25 minutes? Or do I need to get out and take an Uber because there's rideshare available? No.
Okay, thank you.
I can exercise and take a city bike back to Bay Ridge. And once this is expanded out into the neighborhood, I'll be able to go right to my home or within a block of my home, which I can't do now. So it's not unrealistic.
Okay, wait, no,
Thank you.
no, I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
I'm sorry. Let's maintain order, please. Okay, thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's be respectful. Please, thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Josephine, how
Jack,
many
so
more?
I think,
Any more?
Jack, there are board members in the room that have not
Okay.
spoken yet. They've been very patient. If we could go to them next.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So I did flip this one very importantly because we did discuss this with DOT. Board members did get a chance to discuss it. So that's why I wanted to flip it with the public. And thank you very much to those who came out. Thank you so much to those who wrote into the district. Your comments are well heard. Yeah, so I mean, the next step for us is to discuss what we want to do as a committee in terms of recommendations to the broader board in terms of the action proceeding. So let's go to some of the people in the room that you mentioned, Josephine, that have their hands raised, and then we'll go to some 4 people here on the Zoom chat.
Okay, well, Dino, then Carmen, then Larry.
So to the last comment, I can relate with your story. I too am a year-round commuter on my bike. I am also a car owner, so I can relate to your traffic and parking woes that you experience. However, the universal, issue here is safety. Everyone is having issues with safety, and it doesn't seem like bikes are crashing through people's walls while they're nursing their kids, or all these fatalities and accidents that are happening are all due to cars. There are too many cars. We need to reduce the reliance on cars. The City Bike bike share program is going to do that. It's going to normalize biking on our streets. The drivers are going to be more aware of their presence. They're going to be more careful. Right now, they're just pulling out a stop sign. But stop signs are just suggestions, like you said. You had very great points as well. Using City Bike as daylighting, as hardened daylighting, is going to be extremely useful to increase visibility for pedestrians, for cyclists, and for motorists. Right now, again, the daylighting that exists is just paint, and it's always parked. People always park on it. People always park in front of hydrants. All the bike lanes that exist, except 7th Avenue, we don't have any protected bike lanes in our district. The 4th Avenue bike lane needs to be installed south of 65th Street. There's just no excuse for it at this point. It's been there since 2019. Yeah, we just need to normalize cycling, and we need safer infrastructure to handle all these safety concerns. I've been hit by a car twice. My wife has been hit by a car. I've never been in a car accident. So, I haven't never been hit by a bike either. So that's all I gotta say.
Okay, Carmen?
Yeah. I'm a 40-year resident of Bay Ridge, and 40 years that R train has been a horror show. If they fix that R train, I think we probably wouldn't be having this discussion there. But the one thing about the city bike issue, when they came and proposed it,
we were blindsided. We had no idea that we were gonna post such a high number. So this is a way of like narrowing the field. The feedback you're giving us where this is not good locations helps tremendously because that's what they're looking for. That's what we need to hear. And I live, research, and see firsthand. My issue is not really city bike. My issue is the problem we have now with, it's like a lawlessness. Bikes going, just speeding. All different types, no matter what, scooters, bikes, everything, just speeding across the street, running red lights, going on the sidewalk, coming on my block, going in the opposite direction. I leave my house and I say, please God, let me get to where I'm going in one piece. Because it may not look it, but when I joined the board, I was on a walker. So if a 45-pound city bike hits me, it's gonna take me out really well. It's gonna send me back to the hospital. If I break my hips, I may not be able to walk again. So I'm very cautious crossing the street, but even then I get halfway and I look and there's still something coming at me. So my concern as a senior, as a disabled senior, as a longtime resident, I grew up in Red Hook and my dream was to live in Bay Ridge. I wanted to go to Bay Ridge High School and then you couldn't go to school out of your zone. So living here, I love it because it has that small town feel. People are always looking, they may not agree on things, but they do look out for each other. And then I wrote some other stuff here. One of my big concerns is when I had a bike, it had ID. My father had to like say, if you hit somebody, I'm gonna have to pay and the bike goes. There's no, like when I see people on a bike, now they don't care if they hit somebody, if they hurt, what do? They just take off or they leave it. My thing after this is I'm going to start a petition after all this is over that all these bikes have to have some kind of ID on it. Because if I get hit, I want to know who to go after. And the one thing somebody said about city bikes, if nobody's using them, we were told by city bike, I think I might have even asked them, if nobody's riding these bikes, what happens? We don't take them away. So for your question about like these in front of your house, I would hate to own a house and have city bikes in front of it, then decide to sell my house and people come and look, oh, wait a minute, you got 16 bikes in front of your house. I don't know, let me go look at another house. And city bike, let me see what else. I have to write this all down because this is making me crazy. Wait, now they said something about people being disabled. When I had my second hip replacement, and they would drop me off by a session ride, thank God for a session ride, at the physical therapist. I had to go around a line of trucks, and believe me, every step was excruciating. But thank God I was on a walker. But then you think about people that came in the doctor's office after me in wheelchairs. Being in a wheelchair, heading around traffic is a scary thing when cars are coming up at you because not everybody's looking at the road. They're on their phones. They're doing all kind of, paying attention to other things. Let's see. My point is, it's not about, to me, right now, it's not about city bike, is we have to have enforcement. People are not following the rules. As a senior, as a disabled person, and as somebody who became disabled as a 9/11 responder, my issue is, if people are not following the rules, I don't care what they're on, scooter, bike, flying saucer, I don't care. If they're not following the rules, we're all in danger. Because somebody getting hit by a bike, by somebody who doesn't care, can really hurt you. So I'm going to say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for your comments. God bless you. I hope you all stay safe, and I hope your families stay safe, because I've been on this committee a long time. And Josephine can tell you, I went to my niece's funeral who was hit by a car. On the way back from the funeral, I said, wow, we have a meeting. I made that meeting. The traffic committee is very important to me. Residents of Bay Ridge are important to me. Their families are important to me. I don't like hearing that somebody got hit or killed. It doesn't matter if I know them or not. I know what it does to a person's family. So now for you who drive, just be aware of the people around you. Those who ride the bikes, be careful. You with the little kid on the bike, really be careful. This is a safety issue that is out of control, that I can't believe the DOT, who knows Bay Ridge really well, wants to add this number of bikes without fixing the issues we already have. So it's not about, if you can't, if I understand what you're saying. I'm saying, I want you to drive to and from.
All right, Carmen,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Carmen.
I'm sorry, we still have a lot more. Larry didn't speak. If you could, if would, trying to be cognizant of time.
I'll make it very, my opinion, this whole bicycle expansion is folly. I think both as a pedestrian and a motorist and as a casual observer of the goings on of this traffic in the streets. Bicyclists, more often than not, do not obey the most basic rules of the road. They drive the wrong way, they drive on the sidewalks. And they just don't obey the signals and signs. And I find it all annoying to see that we're seeing this such a small percentage of the transportation usage, which is single digits, taking up a lot of our parking spaces is also not helping us. It is not helpful to this
All right,
community, and that's
thank
why
you.
we don't have to
All
have
right.
this.
All right,
in the
Jack.
neighborhood.
Thank you. Jack, I know Steve, Sue hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah, I believe Steve and then Julie, and then we can go to Chris and then Doris.
Okay.
Steve, please.
Thank you. Just so I get out in the open, I'm an avid bike rider. I love riding my bike. I love running in Bay Ridge. Having said that, I have to oppose the expansion of the city bike proposal because I do view it as a land grab by Citibank. Citibank, not Citibank. It reduces, in my opinion, the value of all the adjacent private properties, and then it transfers that value to Citibike. To me, that's absolutely wrong, and without some kind of compensation to the people who lose value of their properties because of this expansion, I could not support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
Hi, thank you for calling on me. I've been waiting very patiently. Few things that I want to address. First of all, I want to say as a board member that I did write to the DOT. And I had several concerns that I have not heard mentioned here. One of them was, there's a plan to take away parking spots at the corners. So, 4 corners, and I know Josephine and I had discussed this, and it's been discussed with other people as well. I'm sure you've discussed it on your committee. Taking away 4 parking spaces on 4 corners is going to add to the fact that we already have limited parking, and now we're going to put city bikes on top of it. Another thing I brought up to the DOT, what's going to happen as far as the sanitation department is concerned when there has to be snow removal? When there's trash and you have all these city bikes, who's going to clean up around those areas? Who is ultimately responsible? Because if there's trash, let's say, left by people who are using the bikes in and around the city bike location in front of someone's home, is that homeowner going to get a ticket for not cleaning up on their sidewalk because someone left their trash from a city bike? What's going to happen if we do get a snowstorm again? We haven't had a lot of snow as of late, but we get a bad snow. How are the plows going to get down and clean? This is something that I was concerned about, came into my mind, and I did address this to the DOT. I did write a letter. Of course, I got no response, but these are things that came in my own mind. Another thing I put in the chat was earlier on in the meeting here, it was spoken about the speeding, the e-bike speeding. Well, who's going to enforce that? Who are the cops going to enforce the speeders? They don't now. They can't. They're unable to. So what's going to happen with that? What's going to happen when people are on the city bikes and they're not observing the laws? I don't know. And yes, there are accidents with cars. There are hazardous drivers. There's no question about it. Of course, there's always people that drive irresponsibly. However, there are also people that ride on their bikes irresponsibly. And now if we add a whole bunch more bikes without the infrastructure to the already existing issue we have with all the cars and the other bikes and the e-bikes and all that, it's just going to be a huge problem. So while I'm not against the city bikes, there has to be a limit to them. And I agree with some of the people previously who spoke about starting out with a few stations. I don't think 50 stations are necessary at all. In fact, my personal opinion is they're going to end up taking out a lot of them, because I know I don't ride a bike at all. I know there are a few people here that do. And if you took a poll in Bay Ridge, which is what the DOT should have done, if they took a poll, they would see that I believe the majority of people in Bay Ridge do not ride bikes. So
Thank you,
that's
Julia.
all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to Chris and then we'll go to Doris. Doris, please.
Thanks, Jack. So each morning when I go to work, I actually told Josephine a little bit about this. When I go to work in the morning, I cross Park Row from Pace University, ironically, to the other side, which is City Hall. And, you know, the bike lanes are two-way lanes, okay? Now, as far as I know, and I don't think anything's ever changed, cyclists have to obey the same laws as everyone else on in terms of traffic. They have to stop, they have to yield, etc. I can tell you it's a gauntlet when I have the light and I cross the street with other people. We're looking both ways very quickly because bikes do not yield or stop for us, even though the light is ours. I'm bringing that up because, you know, I think everyone brings up really good points here. We want to be good stewards. We want to have a good community. And, you know, I think in some ways we feel a little disrespected. Yes, the city has decided, City Hall's decided to support Lyft and City Bike and Citibank in doing this enterprise. Their business model calls for this constellation where you need enough docking stations so people can take and return bikes. That's what they've decided. But it doesn't change the fact that there are laws that we all have to obey, and there's a responsibility. What is Lyft doing to make sure that their cyclists yield, stop, recognize safety for themselves as others? I don't see that, okay? And there's a lot of people who ride in Manhattan, but this is Bay Ridge. We're smaller than Manhattan. We're a little denser in terms of, you know, the streets are smaller. You're going to have increased ridership, and there's nothing wrong with that. But do you really want to see people get hurt either way? You know, it's not a question of car or bike to me. It's a question of you can't pass the buck. You can't. I don't want to hear someone say, well, I did everything I did, but, you know, it's DOT and City Hall. It's like, no, we all have a role in this. We have to be accountable for this. And if there's a measured approach, and I want to like focus in on that word measured, how are the docks being rolled out? All at once, a few at a time, in certain locations, one at a time? I want it measured. I want to know there's signs there telling bike riders to yield to pedestrians when necessary in a bike lane. I want to know those things. That's what they should be doing. That's what Lyft should be supporting. Okay? That's all I want to say. And I want to thank everyone here today because your comments are very important to us. And I think it's going to really make our the advisory statement that we make back well informed from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, Doris, and then we'll go with Daniel
Thank
after.
you. Just on my quick observation, there are at least 4 sites where e-bike docking stations will be installed that are within close distance of pedestrian fatality. And I would ask, has the DOT done a traffic survey of any location that has had a traffic fatality in the last 5 years before including them in the e-bike stations? And my second point is an equity issue. We started this meeting with a sidewalk cafe. And in order to have a sidewalk cafe, the restaurant or sidewalk cafe or a roadside cafe, the owner has to pay a fee for the use of the property. We recently had a meeting about rideshare, and rideshare companies have to pay a fee for using the space. What about Lyft? Why aren't they paying? I think it's an unfair system and it should be reviewed. And I really thank everyone for all of their input. And there is a place for City Bike in our community, but it has to be reasonably and transparently laid out to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Doris. All right, Daniel.
Sorry. I just want to respond to, a couple of the sort of comments that people have continued to make that, Bay Ridge is a different community, that we're a residential community. I'd ask you to listen to the people who are here today who spoke, who are Bay Ridge residents, who do use this as a mode of transportation. We're a diverse community, and we do have a larger community of older adults. That is true. But we also have young families here. I've lived here my whole life, and I want to raise a family here. And I'm telling you, from my personal experience, these are alternatives that people my age, people older than me, people younger than me, who want to stay here are looking for. The way that we're all traveling through the city, it is changing. And this is overall, even with the 50 docks that are proposed, that more than half of these are being proposed on sidewalks. They're being proposed in intersections that are already daylit. What we're talking about here really is about 20-25 parking spaces. I don't have the exact number, but it's in that range, right? And these are docks that are going to create space for eight bikes each. So, I mean, it's a choice of, creating a transportation option for, 160 bikes versus 20 parking spaces. So you're creating this space for people who might be making the decision between whether to buy a car or not, or, whether they can live in Bay Ridge and get to their job, or get to school or wherever it is they need to go. Like, these are people who love this neighborhood, who want to stay here, who are trying to make the decision now if they can. And a car is a huge expense that some people might not want to take on. Um, I want to also talk about, the enforcement issues that people have talked about with bikes, and want to just say that that is equally applicable to cars as well. I don't think that when we're talking about e-bikes, which again, these are not e-bikes, these are just regular bikes. This is talking about enforcement. It goes both ways, because I think everyone who lives in this neighborhood, even close to Shore Road, can hear the drag racing every freaking night, especially now that it's getting warmer. It happens every night. Everybody here has seen a car rip through an all-way stop sign, has seen a car rip through a red light, seen three cars in a row double parked or triple parked on Third Avenue. I mean, the enforcement against cars is non-existent in this neighborhood. So if we want to talk about safety issues, I think we have to be honest it's just that is the real problem here. All right, it's not the bikes. It's not what is proposed to be added here. So I just want to emphasize that, because when we talk about safety concerns, I think we all share that. We all agree that everyone in this neighborhood deserves the right to travel safely, to not have to be looking both ways on a one-way street, or to, hold their breath at an all-way stop sign. But I mean, I think we just have to be honest that that is the real safety concern.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. So in the interest of time, I know it's quite the late hour. I've been trying to synthesize what everyone has said in this meeting, and I'm going to propose this motion that hopefully well captures the thoughts of the entire committee. So I propose a motion to write to DOT and elected officials, similar to our last proposal, in support of additional transit accessibilities in concept, and that while this is not a bike versus car issue, that the following should take place by the DOT. Number one, that the DOT should assess and address the specific station feedbacks as provided by community and as gathered by CB10 within this meeting, as well as offline, and to ensure that locations that are duplicative are consolidated per location comments provided again by the community and by the committee, by community and by the committee. Number two, in light of the fact that pedestrian safety is a major priority of the board, as we voted on earlier this year, to request that the DOT keep in strong consideration pedestrian safety when placing station locations strategically. And number three, encourage additional infrastructure to support the potential of bike ridership, such as on 4th Avenue protected bike lanes, yield signs, stop signs, and a couple other things I think people mentioned in the meeting. Okay, so that's my proposal to the committee.
Okay, so installation is
Committee comments.
expected to be in the fall. I'm sorry, so Jack has a motion. You need a second to that motion?
Second.
Well, right, so first there's a second to the motion. There was a second. Now there's discussion.
Okay, any discussion?
Okay, Carmen?
Jack, I think we should add on there, while we can, that no parking spots be eliminated. And the reason for it is, once the city of Yes went through, we are inundated with trucks taking spots. So we already lost a lot of spots. So I think we should add that to try to put them in spots where we're not eliminating any more traffic, any more parking spots. Because people here have cars for an assortment of reasons. You know, they may have a disabled relative, an elderly relative, work, a million reasons, and they're right to have that car. But I think we should put in there that no parking spots are eliminated. We're already, we've lost countless already.
Thank you.
Pause this whole thing until they do some more data.
Steve?
That's not. Add something
Steve.
to that real fast.
Yes, I would.
Steve, and then we'll go to Dino. I'm sorry, it's so
Yes,
hard to type it down.
I didn't catch who, I didn't catch who, I didn't catch who the last person was that was speaking, but I support that. But I also believe, in addition to what's being said there, what she said, is that there also should be a request that they study compensation to people who own houses that are adjacent, because I do believe that this will immediately and very seriously reduce the value of their homes. And I don't think that that's fair. So I would propose that we add that.
All right, I think you mentioned Dino had a hand up.
Yes,
and then
Dino had his
Stephanie
hand
also
raised.
So, excuse me, just to be respectful of everybody talking, you know, it's almost 9 o'clock, we all want to go home the weekday. In response to Carmen's comment, you know, we're only really talking about 40 spaces here. It's in the grand scheme of things, it's 6,000 spots in the whole expansion area, like it's nothing. And the trade-off here is increased visibility and safety. You can't have, you're either gonna have safety or you're gonna have parking problems. So pick one. You know, it's as simple as that. Okay, so then don't complain when another elderly person gets hit by a car or when a cyclist doesn't see a pedestrian crossing at a red. Okay.
Okay.
We're talking about parking.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Can we keep it to committee members, please? I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think we heard you. Okay, Dino. Let's go, Stephanie.
Okay,
Yeah, just two things. One, I mean, probably the two loudest from either side is that, yes, the community does want the expansion of City Bike, but on the other side, there is a desire to do this in a more measured manner. Jack, when you said, I don't remember which point in the motion, was it number 2, where you're requesting the DOT evaluate particular sites? But I think that in addition to evaluating the sites, the list has been produced, and I believe the word measured has been used repeatedly this evening, that a more measured approach in rolling this out would be most appropriate. And I think what accompanies that is more data, a more accurate look at each proposed site.
Okay, so the statement that I had previously said for number 1 was that DOT should assess and address the specific station feedback. And in this section, I assume that district office will help gather every single one of those. Thank you, Josephine, in advance. And consolidate duplicative locations per location comments. I can add on to that and to ensure rollout in a measured approach. Potentially, we might want to define that a little bit.
But I can that out, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
So
Doris?
we
I think
we
last
have
one.
Staley, if we're gonna go back and forth, Staley
Okay.
was next
Okay,
and then we'll go
sure.
to Doris, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Josephine.
I have a comment about what Doris had to say earlier, plus what I think might be a useful, friendly amendment to Jack's motion. Doris asked about fatalities, pedestrian fatalities that occurred at some of the sites that are being proposed for these docks. As far as I can tell, having looked at all of these sites, there are 4 of them that had pedestrian fatalities in the past, 10 years, as far back as we have data. And I think it's worth pointing out that that's the reason that those sites, part of the reason those sites were chosen is because, as Dino's been sort of explaining, putting those stations on the corners of those intersections in other cities has been demonstrated to reduce the risks to pedestrians, right? That's actually why they are there, because those are dangerous intersections. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. And then the friendly amendment, I think a lot of what I'm hearing in this discussion, a lot of the concern is about footprint, right? And it's a little technical, but I think it's worth noting that these stations come in kind of 2 chunks. It's 8 bikes put together, right? There are 2 docks that they usually put together into 16 in a lot of arrangements. And I think maybe we could add to Jack's motion that the city should consider using the smaller 8 bike docks because footprint is a concern for our community, something along those lines, that they should think about the footprint at each of these docks and maybe not commit to installing a full 16 bike rack, which is what I think they're proposing for a lot of these, if that makes some sense. Yep.
Doris?
So
I want to reiterate what I said. I believe we need to ask the DOT for traffic studies at the 4 locations where there have been fatalities and others near or a full traffic analysis of the placement of the bikes. I do not think they have done that, and I think as part of transparency, we deserve that.
I believe correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we do have a running list of potential sites that they do need to do traffic studies against. But we really haven't heard too much from the DOT, just broadly against those points.
We haven't heard anything from DOT, Jack.
Right.
DOT
Yeah,
did explain, I
yeah.
believe, that they have a criteria, a review, and that's they have certain criteria. I don't have that list. I don't know what that is, but there is a criteria that they review in order to propose a location. So I think we could certainly ask what that is, what that the details.
I think we need to ask for that at
He was having it within a 5-minute walking distance.
Right.
Okay, we're just over time. Jane Marie will give you the last word here, and then I'll remake the motion with some minor adjustments.
Right. I just wanted to know if we were going back to Steve's point, because Lyft is making a profit on this. It is a profitable enterprise, and if there are homeowners who are interested in this, that if there was some kind of compensation that was given, I don't know if that's ever been addressed before, but he did bring up that point, and I didn't know if we were going to return that or include that into the our discussion, or put it in it as a point of reference in some way.
I support that.
I'm trying to think about how to best word it. So I know how to word the other 2. So this is how I have it so far, right? Number 1 is amended to add the phrasing and to roll out in a more measured approach, with the measured data-centered approach, and adding a 4th point to
again.
Okay, I'm sorry. Listen, let's all be respectful. The committee's talking, please. Okay, all right, let's all please be respectful. Okay, all right, please, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll add a 4th point to.
Please, let's please. Yes, go ahead.
And I'll add a 4th point. Thank you. I'll add a 4th point to minimize parking spots, and minimize parking spots with the location selected, minimize potential locations, and considering using 8 bike docks to, once again, minimize parking spots that are used up. So that was the 4th point I was going to add to the 3 points I had previously. How would we want to word this additional point?
Parking space limits.
Remember, the right now the motion is to write to DOT and elected officials is in the motion currently.
And well, how about just something to consider appropriate compensation to the homeowners of adjacent or owners of adjacent properties that are affected?
Number 5, and to
I would
consider
include owners and
appropriate
businesses.
okay, number 5, consider appropriate compensation to owners, homeowners and business owners on adjacent property.
Affected. Yeah, okay, on adjacent property.
Yeah. Okay. Any objections to that? Any of these amendments? Okay. All right. So I'm gonna make this motion. Let me know if I need to reread it. I think we're like way over time, but let me know if I need to reread it. I'm happy to. If not, motion's on the floor. I believe there was a second from Dino. And Kurt, I think you motioned virtually. Okay, so all in favor of this motion as stated and as triply amended, please raise your hand. Okay. Any opposed?
One.
Any abstentions or recusals? Okay, motion passes. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We adjourned?
Yeah.
Yeah.